The flight didn't feel like escape, it felt like continuity, just without permission being requested anymore. My son slept most of the way, his head tilted toward the window like he didn't fully trust that the clouds were real. Every so often he would wake up, ask if we were still going to the beach, and fall back asleep before I answered. I kept thinking about how quickly children accept outcomes when adults stop over-explaining them. At the hotel in Bali, the world didn't behave like conflict. It behaved like routine hospitality. Check in. Key cards. A pool that didn't care about family dynamics back home. The simplicity was almost disorienting. On the second day, my phone started lighting up missed calls, messages. Not from my mother at first, from relatives who rarely spoke directly unless something had already broken. The tone was different from the house I had left, less certainty, more rearranging of narratives. My sister called once, didn't speak for the first few seconds, then asked if it was true that I had handled things alone. That phrase told me everything about how the earlier moment had been reconstructed without me present. I said yes. She didn't argue. She just went quiet in a way that suggested she had been placed into a story midway through and wasn't sure which version she was supposed to believe. That evening, my son ran into the pool without hesitation for the first time. Not because he was braver, but because nothing was being withheld anymore. No one was adjusting plans around invisible conditions. I watched him and realized something uncomfortable. He wasn't celebrating the trip. He was relaxing into stability he had assumed would always be there. The shift I had felt back home was still unfolding somewhere behind us, not loudly, not dramatically, but steadily, like paperwork being refiled in a system that no longer recognized old assumptions. 2 days later, my mother sent a message, not an apology, a clarification. It said she did not intend to create misunderstanding, and that family decisions require alignment. I read it twice. There was no mention of my son. That absence said more than the message itself. I didn't respond immediately. Not because I was trying to punish silence, but because I was noticing something else forming, clarity without emotional acceleration. When I finally replied, it was short. I wrote that I understood she believed alignment was necessary, but that alignment cannot be retroactively imposed on decisions already executed independently. I didn't send it to win anything. I sent it to end the habit of rewriting events after they had already occurred. There was no immediate response. There rarely is. When a system discovers it no longer has access to a previously assumed control point. On the final night in Bali, my son asked if we would come back. I told him I didn't know yet. He accepted that answer without resistance. Then he asked something simpler. If next time, everyone would come. I hesitated longer than I wanted to. Not because I didn't know the logistics, because I didn't know the answer to the underlying assumption inside the question. Eventually, I said, next time we'll only plan for people who already know they're part of it. He nodded like that made sense. Even if it didn't fully translate, on the return flight, I didn't think about confrontation anymore. I thought about structure, about how families often confuse shared history with shared authority, about how easily decisions can be reframed as we decisions until someone quietly proves they are not. Back home, nothing dramatic happened. That was the most noticeable part. No confrontation waiting at the door, no dramatic reconciliation. Just distance that had already started before we even left, now made visible enough that no one could pretend it was accidental. My mother didn't mention the trip again for weeks. When she finally did, it was indirect, a comment about how things got complicated unnecessarily. I didn't correct her, because correction implies a shared framework, and I had stopped assuming we were operating from the same one. My son still talks about Bali sometimes, but less like a memory now, more like a reference point, a moment when plans stopped being fragile. Not because everything became perfect, but because I stopped treating exclusion as something that needed negotiation before I could move forward. And in that silence, between what was expected and what actually happened, something settled that hasn't shifted back since. Belonging is no longer something I wait to be granted, it's something I confirm before I stay.